What Star Wars Tales did essentially is save the prequels. Not that they're not meme-worthy, of course, but you have to admit that a lot of arcs, a lot of backstory to the characters was unfilled. Back in the day, the Clone Wars animated show did do a lot to repair the lacking of story from the prequels. It gave life to the clones, which previously was very much missing. But now we get to the question of Jedi Master Yaddle. You see, back in the day and up until yesterday, we really did not know much about Yaddle in canon. Of course, in Legends, there's a couple of things that come to mind, especially Yaddle's death. That is not the way it went in Legends. In Legends, she actually saved Anakin from a bomb. That's how she died. She sacrificed herself. Now in canon, there's a different story altogether, and it involves Count Dooku. While Yaddle is very much present in the expanded universe, when it comes to Star Wars canon, the Phantom Menace was all that we actually knew about the character. And that is not a whole lot except for a non-existing presence basically in the Jedi High Council during the Phantom Menace, where Qui-Gon meets up with the Jedi High Council to inform them about Maul, a Sith Lord, and the Chosen One, Anakin Skywalker. As you may well know, Yaddle, in Tales of the Jedi, she was voiced by the now famed Star Wars director, Mandalorian director, Bryce Dallas Howard. Unlike many thought previously, it appears that Yaddle does not have the syntax or the same speech pattern as Yoda. Everything Yoda says is kind of backwards. Yaddle speaks normal, basic, just like everybody else. In today's video, we're going to talk a couple of possibilities or a couple of explanations as to why exactly this is, and probably come to a conclusion, because there are a couple of interviews with Dave Filoni and even some explanations that the fans have deduced themselves. Let's start with the first one, which is a possible explanation as to why Yaddle doesn't speak like Yoda, and that is that Yoda is much older than Yaddle. This means that their species' speech pattern was changed between all these generations. 900 years ago, Yoda's species used to talk like Yoda does, but after a while, they did away with their speech pattern, and the syntax became normal, just like Yaddle speaks, who was presumably born later after Yoda. But the more likely explanation, and it's kind of out of universe, is that Star Wars Dave Filoni wants to keep Yoda as special and as mysterious as George Lucas originally intended. This means that both in the narrative sense, in the storyline sense, and in practical ways, this is why Yaddle doesn't speak like Yoda. I mean, just look at Yaddle's both versions of Legends and canon. They have completely different deaths. Why this is important is that what we saw yesterday of how Yaddle died, it doesn't seem like Dave Filoni will move forward with any Legends material. We've all seen Legends slowly become canon in the same version, but Tales of the Jedi did not borrow from Yaddle's Legends origin at all. Legends Yaddle, for example, did use the same speech pattern as Yoda. She did speak backwards, but comics, games, and other versions, George Lucas did not consider these to be exact canon. That's why the differential between C canon and so forth, anything that George wasn't directly involved with, he did not consider sacred canon. He used other authors and other idea men to do the other expanded universe. That's why most of the writers did consider Yaddle to speak just like Yoda, essentially stamping the approval of their species speaks all the same with the broken speech pattern. Officially in canon, there are only 3 known of Yoda's species, that is Yoda, Yaddle, and now Grogu. In Legends, there are more characters of Yoda's species, but now in canon, we have only heard 2 of them speak. Grogu does not speak yet because he is quote-unquote young. Yaddle speaks normal, and Yoda speaks a broken dialect. Well, what Dave Filoni did was kind of clarify this with a recent interview talking about Yaddle's speech pattern, saying that he took inspiration from George Lucas and Frank Oz, who originally voiced Yoda. There, Dave Filoni explained that Frank Oz's inspiration for how Yoda spoke at first and what they discussed with George Lucas is that Yoda speaks like that because he was taught by his master, who did speak the same way, in the same speech pattern, and it is essentially an homage to his master. That's why Yoda continues to speak like he does, and it breaks the school of thought that their entire species speak like that. Because that's all we know of their species. Not George Lucas or Dave Filoni, nobody has ever come forth to explain the origins of their species. What planet do they come from? What is their species called? We don't know anything about them. Star Wars continues to keep Yoda and Yaddle species a mystery still, even Grogu. As much material as there is in the expanded universe, even back then, there is no origin story to talk about, but at least now we can keep adding to it. With how Yaddle speaks, now we can kind of come to understand their species, although we don't know much yet. At least we know that Grogu does not have to speak like Yoda. He might end up speaking just like Yaddle in normal, basic dialect. And that's refreshing news, I gotta say. Something different to their species. More, it adds to the mystery rather than remove it. And worst comes to worst, we can always trust Dave Filoni. I mean, in this case, you can clearly see that he knew what he was doing. Not only did he explain Dooku's backstory of how he became a Sith, and it was perfect. He perfectly outlined the way the Jedi Order was corrupted, the bureaucracy, the infighting within the Jedi Order and in the Senate and everything else. It was completely out of control. Before what we saw in The Phantom Menace, Dave Filoni made it clear that the galaxy was just running amok. And to top it off, he also explained how Ahsoka survived Order 66, something that he didn't even need to. We saw Ahsoka survive Order 66 and we had no complaints really, but he went a detail further. He specifically explained that Anakin was the one who taught her to eventually survive Order 66, unknowingly, of course. This is why Dave Filoni is a perfectionist. He is a pragmatist. He knows exactly what needs to be done. And worst comes to worst, when Yoda's species is handled delicately or the reveal, I know that Dave will do his best and show us the best thing that he's got, not just a sloppy reveal where it essentially destroys Yoda's origins, Yaddle's origins, or even Grogu's. That's why I have the complete belief and faith in this man that he will take Star Wars to the next level wherever it needs to be. I would love to know what you guys thought about that episode specifically. We're going to talk more about what happened there, but let me know all your thoughts down below in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, leave a thumbs up down below, subscribe for dailies. Now you can have an awesome day, Star Wars fans. I'll see you in the next video, and may the Force be with you. Until then.